and we're happy to introduce Harrison Webb, who's a technical consultant with Esri, and he's also a UNC Charlotte alum. So we're glad to have Harrison here to lead our session, and I'm going to turn it over to him for the rest of our program. If you have questions, you can unmute yourself and ask them, or feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll be glad to address them as we go. But without further ado, Harrison, thank you so much for being here and talking to us about careers with Esri.
Yep, thanks, Jay. Yep, like Jay said, my name's Harrison Webb. I'm a technical consultant here with Esri. I've been with Esri for about, I guess 3.5 years now. I graduated from UNC Charlotte in 2017, and pretty much got the job with Esri a couple months right after that. So I've been with them my entire professional career. I didn't start out as a technical consultant. I started out as a technical support analyst in Esri Support Services. So as you can kind of think of it, it's kind of like a call center, but way more in depth than like your regular old call center. Some of the most intense technical problems that anyone's probably ever seen has come through Esri technical support. So if you're ever looking for a quick entry into Esri, tech support is the way to go. But what I do nowadays is through my knowledge of that I gained in tech support, I'm now a technical consultant. And what that means is I provide consulting for a wide range of customers. And what kind of consulting and what kind of customers I do really depends on a day-to-day basis. So right now, my most frequent customers are like state and local government type of customers, and that could be anything from like the city of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, maybe like a county down in Florida. And I guess to further that, I'm on a team that's called the Regional Services Southeast, and so I focus mostly on customers kind of in the southeastern United States. Now that does change depending on needs and things like that, but so for the most part, it'll be kind of catered, the state and local will be catered to the North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia area, some Tennessee and things like that. And then I've also got some national government customers. So like I work with NOAA, the Navy, Coast Guard, just to name a few. Some utilities customers like Duke Energy, they're a huge customer of us. I've worked with them. Natural resources, so like some oil customers out in the Midwest, I've actually had some time with them. And then also some internal customers. And what that means is basically like a colleague of mine needs some help like that. Or maybe there's my boss, or there's someone that's trying to figure out what's called a scope of work. And that scope of work is going to be something that I am a subject matter expert on, and how much time it's going to take, how many resources do we need to do, do we need to pull anyone else in the project, things like that. So with this being said, this consulting it's different types of people every single day. It's different changes of pace. State and local governments operate much slower than, say, like a natural resources or a utilities customer. National government can be even slower than that, sometimes faster. There's just a lot more hurdles to jump through, with that being said. And what kind of consulting do I do? Well, Esri is a pretty big software company, as I'm sure all of you are aware. I specialize specifically in ArcGIS Enterprise. That's my forte, if you will. I provide consulting on like heavy IT knowledge, different types of ArcGIS Enterprise environments. There's a million different ways to deploy that piece of software. That can be on one machine, or you could have it on 30 machines. You could have it on more than 30 machines if you wanted to. You could also automate that kind of stuff. So I consult people on how to make that process much quicker, and they can just press a button and it does it all for them. There's a lot of different configurations and parameters that come into play with that, obviously. Cloud-based deployments. So if you ever heard of Amazon Web Services or the Microsoft Azure Cloud, Google's got a cloud service, Oracle's got a cloud service, things like that. But a lot of customers they don't want a big server room at their office, whatever it may be, especially like if it's like a small little local government, they might not even have the space for a big server that's going to house the software. So they hire Amazon or Microsoft to house that server for them, and we can put our software there in the cloud. What I also provide consulting on is our desktop software, which you may be more familiar with at the current moment, depending on your studies. But I don't have much GIS knowledge, and we'll get into that in a little bit. I'll kind of tell you how I got to where I'm at. But my big piece that I do in ArcGIS Pro is I build address locators, composite locators and such with either customers' data sets, or we've got a data set that customers can purchase called Street Map Premium. It's like this 90 gigabyte data set, and it basically uses, it's basically, you can build the Esri World geocoder if you're familiar with that, and have it like on your own computer or your own server or wherever it may be. And then just some basic workflows like publishing map services and things like that, or managing your enterprise geodatabase through ArcGIS Pro. And if you ever need like a good, quick, free to use enterprise geodatabase, then you can use PostgreSQL. It's a great open source database that you can use on your own. You can install it on your laptops at home if you wanted to. I've got one on this laptop that we're looking at right now. But PostgreSQL is a lot of our software is built upon it, and so I was able to just get some good hands-on knowledge with that. Just kind of whether I wanted to or not, it just kind of happened. So moving on to some more day-to-day type of activities that I do, like I said, it can really be anything. I either do the work for customers, which means I'm literally doing whatever it is that they have hired me to consult them on. I mean, obviously I'll work with them on it and make sure that we're all on the same page and the project's going smoothly. Or maybe they'll ask me, maybe they want to know how to do the work, but they just don't know how to do the work. And so what I do is I get on a WebEx like this, or I get on like a Zoom call or whatever it may be, and I'll spend maybe like a week with them, and I will basically have them drive. They'll share their screen with me, and if it's something like Zoom, I can draw on the screen. I can show them where to click and what to point and where to point to, and like what each button means, what these URLs mean, whatever it is it may be. I show them how to do it, what it means, and why we have to do it this way. So in a way, this consulting not only is like making sure that this customer, whoever it is set up for success, but it's also me teaching them in a way. I have to teach all sorts of different types of people. As you can imagine, a state and local government employee is going to operate completely different than that Duke Energy customer, something like that. Slower paced versus a faster pace. Maybe they've got a higher IT staff, or maybe they got more GIS workers that know what they're doing. It just all depends. So I either do the work or I show someone how to do the work. And a lot of that work we've already been over. But here's another list of other things that we could do is like an ArcGIS Enterprise implementation. So I could install it for them, put it all together, show them how to use it and such, or I can sit next to them and kind of help them put it together on their own so they know how to do it. And maybe that helps them in the long run, and they don't need my help anymore. Maybe they've already got that piece of information, and now I can help them on different pieces of the puzzle, which is like these mobile applications. Maybe they're out in the field, or they got field workers that need like collector or survey 123 or workforce or whatever it may be, quick capture. And they don't need to know how to do the enterprise implementation stuff. They've already gotten it from me, or maybe they already knew it from someone else or on their own, whatever it may be. So now we build these mobile applications for them. Or we tweak the ones they've got, or we guide them on how to make the ones they've got better. Same thing with like an ArcGIS dashboard. If you're familiar with that COVID-19 dashboard that surfaced like I guess a year ago now, that's something that we would provide consulting on. Is we could either create it for them. I've created some for customers. It's not my favorite piece to do, but it is a very necessary piece of the software and can provide a great story for people to understand what's happening wherever it may be. We could also help them optimize their current dashboards. Maybe it's moving a little slow, and so I could look in the back end and really see what's happening. And so I can help them figure out why it's happening that way, help them with data management in their enterprise geodatabase. I also work with project teams, different project teams every single day, whether it's an internal project team, an external project team, or a combo of both. So like myself and maybe another colleague of mine are working with 3 or 4 different individuals from, say, that City of Charlotte customer that I've got. It's like an Esri team and a City of Charlotte team working together to make this one conglomerate of GIS folk, and we get the job done. Now, how I got here, as you can see, the very bottom bullet point, I didn't know what Esri was. I had no GIS experience. I majored in computer science, specifically in the track of software information systems. So I got a lot of information, like IT knowledge, networking type knowledge, some coding, some web-based development, things like that. A lot of project management skills I had to take through that major, and a philosophy minor helped a lot of like the critical thinking and things like that. So, like I said, absolutely no GIS experience. Didn't know what Esri was. You don't have to know anything about GIS to have a career. One at Esri, but really in GIS, you can pick it up. It's a really I really enjoyed the learning path to get to where I'm at today. And then not only with the college classes I took at UNC Charlotte, I did work at the Office of Classroom Support. If you're familiar with that, I don't know if they still ride the segways around campus when y'all are on campus, but that was the people that rode the segways and come and fix the podiums in the middle of class, and then like also help faculty, staff, and such, like in offices and things like that. So that kind of work environment for 4 years helped me, one, troubleshoot things, whether it was software or hardware. That was mostly hardware back then, but it translated into software type of using and troubleshooting that I do today on a day-to-day basis. I get very deep in the weeds of troubleshooting. That's kind of like my number one skill set coming from tech support. It also helps me navigate different conversations. Like I just got off a super highly technical phone call with customers a couple minutes ago, and now I'm giving this presentation to a university audience, completely different. So you have to really in any professional setting, but you have to really be able to navigate your way through and talk to different people and become personable. So that was a huge skill set that I learned, and it got me to where I'm at today. And so how it all ties together, like I said, my arena is ArcGIS Enterprise. I'm a subject matter expert in that. That is heavy. There's lots of GIS workflows that take place in that. You got to know how to do desktop GIS to be able to put this stuff into what we call web GIS. Web GIS is geographic information systems out on the internet, out on the web. And that's basically what ArcGIS Enterprise does. Same thing as ArcGIS Online. So I have these IT conversations every single day. It's completely unavoidable in this side of the software that I use. I have to do it. I troubleshoot every single day. I just do it. People know that I know how to fix the software when it breaks, and so they call me. Those are a lot of the projects that I work on. I'm kind of like the project lead for this ArcGIS Enterprise, but also almost like a support, like a glorified tech support guy in a way. Sometimes when things break, because I'll figure out how to fix it in a way. I also use highly technical software every single day. Esri software is highly technical. Not only is Esri software highly technical, but all the software that customers like to integrate with our software, like PostgreSQL or maybe SQL Server or Oracle, or maybe I'm using a Linux-based operating system and things like that. That's a very highly technical thing. It's all on the command line, at least in my side of things. It's all on the command line. You can do a desktop-based one. I also work on multiple projects at the same time. Not only do college classes help you do that, because you got 4 or 5 different classes going on at a time, depending on your how many classes you're taking, I guess. But each one's got a different project, different speeds, different people that you're working with, and that goes into every customer is different. And so what I wish I would have learned, and how I think preparing yourself, depending on what you're looking to do with your careers, but if it is, say, something with Esri or a GIS career in the future, then I would say, especially if you think there's going to be anything related to ArcGIS Enterprise at all, add to your GIS toolbox by learning some computer science or IT based skills. You don't, if it doesn't have to be, if you're not going to take classes on it, then just do some self learning, things like that. If you're going to be in this modern GIS world, then you're gonna have a conversation in your future job with an IT specialist or some sort of security analyst or whoever it may be, and you'll better yourself by preparing now to have that conversation, because someone's going to say something, or you're going to have to say something to that person, and it might not go well if y'all can't communicate with each other, because GIS talks completely different than IT. And so bridging that gap is a huge piece. And almost probably any other person in my role that has the same skill sets as me is going to tell you the same thing. And a lot of customers, if you talk to them, would tell you the same thing too, is that they wish they had a better relationship with their IT folk. So doing that now is a big thing. Python. I don't have very much good experience at all with Python. I wish I did. That's our software. I mean, ArcGIS Pro and Desktop ArcMap are basically Python behind the scenes. And since I don't have any sort of GIS knowledge myself, and Python's used heavily in the GIS world, I'm behind on that. And automation is used, Python's used for automation workflows with our software all the time. And people are doing it, people want to do it, and go ahead, put that step forward and at least do some basic Python so you can understand it. It's a great programming language to learn. I'm trying to learn it myself right now, but if you can learn that Python, then you're one step ahead on everyone. You can do desktop GIS. You can also do web GIS through Python. Lots of good things you can do out of Python, and someone's going to see that and be like, "Oh, they know Python. We can get a lot of good information out of this." GIS, y'all are in the geography department, I imagine, so you're already a step ahead of the game. But GIS itself is evolving to what you see at the top of my screen right there, where it says Web GIS. A lot of these desktop workflows that you do in ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro, yeah, they're still there. They're going to always be there. But it is going to the web. It really is, and there's not much we can do about it. It's not even just in the GIS world. It's in all sort of realms out there. Things are moving to software and highly technical computer-based things. And so you can get into this more of a modernized GIS where you at least get an idea of ArcGIS Enterprise and why what it means to be a modern GIS, then you're going to be ahead of everyone out there. I know that GIS and computer science are hand in hand today. And then willingness to learn and adapt. Like I said before, I had those huge list of different customers. These aren't the only customers that are out there right now. There's all sorts of other ones. But with just that list, like I said, every single conversation is going to be completely different. Every single need from those customers are going to be completely different. So I've got to be able to learn what their needs are, and I have to adapt to those needs and also adapt to the different people and different ideas and whatever it may be between these people. And so I think if you can accept that beforehand, you're going to be very well off in a GIS based world. I think that that's a huge skill or skills to have, willingness to learn and adapt, and you can't really be taught it. It's just something you kind of have to do, and if you can do that, you're doing great. And that's That's all I've got. I know that's we don't have much time here. I could definitely go deeper into anything that anyone is interested in. So, what kind of questions does anyone have for me?
Again, you can unmute and ask your questions or put them in the chat. Harrison, I'll get us started with just one thing real quick. You've done a great job of laying out things that people can do to get themselves more prepared for stuff. But as somebody who got into the field, like you say, you didn't know a ton about it. How fast was your ramp up on getting in process with Esri, and what was that like on the company side in terms of training for you, what they provided?
Yeah, so it's like a really good question. So, little bit to expand that kind of whole process. Like I said, I didn't know what Esri was, so I just was applying for jobs on LinkedIn and Indeed right out of college, and saw the Esri one, and it said uh, implementation analyst, and so I applied for that in like September of 2017. And the reason I applied for it is because it software and said they would prefer some computer science or IT knowledge. It wasn't required, but they would prefer that. And so I applied in September because it was right up my alley, and they got me through a series of interviews. So you do it might be different for the tech support role now, but I had a series of interviews. I would talk to HR, human resources. Then, if they liked me, they would send me to the. So I live here in Charlotte, North Carolina, still. So they would send me to the person that was in charge of recruiting in Charlotte. Name's Terry Bliss, and then if she liked me, she would move me to a technical interview, and that technical interview would be on the phone as well with one of the tech support analysts at either Charlotte office or in our California office, and I guess St. Louis now. And so that would be like an hour long phone call. And what you do, you just answer a series of technical questions during that. And all the person is, I used to conduct these interviews actually after I'd spent some time in tech support. And all the person on the phone is looking for is if you can find the answer. You don't have to know it off the top of your head, and you find the answer by Googling it. They say you can have a computer in front of you, and you say, "Hey, I don't know the answer to that. Let me look that up," and you find it. So if you can get most of those or prove that you can find the answer to something on the internet, you move on to the next stage. The next stage is an all-day on-site interview. It's probably different now that we're in COVID, but I imagine it'll change back to that once it's all over. But you go to whichever office you're interviewing for, Redlands, California, or St. Louis or Charlotte, and they either fly you out there, or if you're already in Charlotte, you drive to Charlotte and you have your on-site interview. It's all day. You interview with different analysts, different group leaders, which are like the people that manage the analysts. You interview with HR. You interview with the person that kind of runs tech support or that division at the Charlotte office. So it's like 8 or 9 different interviews. It's like a full work day, and you're talking to all these different people. It's the innovate and adapt, or talking to different people, bullet points that I was talking about. So they're trying to see if you can do that well, and they know it's going to be a hard process. It's not easy, but it's well worth it. It's a great experience. And then once you're done with that, if they like you, if you make it to the end of that, you're almost through the gate at that point, and you have one more interview with HR, and they basically say, "Hey, are you still interested in this after all that?" And you either say yes or no. You should say yes, and after that, it's kind of you're on. So that for me was a month and a half. That's pretty short actually. It's usually a lot longer, but they needed someone for my role pretty much immediately. Um, so it was like a month and a half. I had interviewed in September, October, all those like early October, and I was starting my position on November 6th, 2017. So month and a half, 2 months during that, maybe 3 to 4 nowadays. But great
All
question.
right. Rachel asked, can you talk to us about the most rewarding part of your role and then also what you find to be most challenging?
Sure. Yeah. So the most rewarding part of my role is the like what I like to call like the knowledge transfer parts of like my meetings with customers. It's really so like I help them put together the ArcGIS Enterprise software or whatever we're doing, and they've got all these ideas that they want to do with the software. I don't really know those ideas coming into it. That's something that like the sales team, kind of gauges from them. And they sell them the software, and I guess they put me in charge of it. And so they tell me all these things they want to do with the software. And so with me having all this experience with the software, or all these connections, there's 1,000 people just in my professional services division, which is all these consultants and things like that. So I've got all these different connections. If I don't know the answer, I'll find the answer or get someone on the phone that does know the answer. And really, with all that coming together, is helping them achieve their goals. It feels really good. And before that, it was fixing someone's problems or technical issues in tech support. It's kind of like that, but a step forward. So now it's not really, there are technical issues, but now it's more of like I have an idea, I have a desire, I have a vision, a goal. How do we meet this goal? And so using my skills and expertise to help customers and people meet those goals, those desires, it's pretty fulfilling. I really enjoy doing it, and I know that people do get a lot of good time and value out of working together with me, and so it feels good doing that. And then the most challenging part of my job, I would say, on a technical side of thing, is really not knowing something. And there are times you don't know something. Like Friday, I had an example. I'm trying to build this address locator from that bullet point I was talking about, and there's this. It's for this customer up in Connecticut, and they've got all these different borough names for all these cities, but they have to have these boroughs, and there could be like 25 boroughs for the city, but they need the borough to show up with the city. It's long story short, I don't know how to do it, and a lot of the people that I've asked can't figure it out either. And so I had to deliver a piece that wasn't fully finished. I mean, we're long from a deadline, but I don't like having a deliverable that's not fully done yet. And I'm having a hard time trying to figure it out. And so the most challenging piece is not knowing something and then having to say that you don't know it, but you can figure it out. And I will say that people would much rather say that you don't know it than act like you do know it. And then 2 months go by and everyone's mad at you because you don't know it and you didn't ask anyone for help. So the most challenging piece, long story short, is not knowing something and having to try and figure it out. So great question.
Stephanie asks, do you work more often individually or as part of a team?
Both. I would say my individual role is more so with a team, and that team is mostly. It depends, but for the most part, what I'm in charge of for most of my like packages, what we sell is called what it's called a jumpstart, an enterprise jumpstart, and that's where we sell ArcGIS Enterprise, and I essentially sit next to these people. I would be traveling to a customer's offices if we were allowed to travel right now, but now it's over a virtual screen sharing session. So I would sit next to someone, or they would share the screen with me, and I would point and click and kind of tell them how to do it. And so that's always with the customer. Sometimes there's one person on the line. Sometimes they have 10 to 15 people on the line. That could be GIS analyst, that could be their GIS admin, that could be their IT, security, their database administrator, anyone from their company that wants to be involved. More the merrier, honestly. I enjoy talking to people. It also could be some people from the Esri side of things, like their account manager or the project manager on the Esri side of things. Or maybe I've got a new employee here and I want them to learn, and so I let them shadow me for that time. So in like that scenario, I'm working with maybe one, maybe 15 to 20 people, depends. But I also do work completely by myself on some things. Like right now, I'm writing up some documentation for a customer. It's kind of like a build your own PB&J or like build a paper airplane type of workflow. I've got to like type out this whole thing and make sure it's like you can't read between the lines. Like it's yes, no, this is the way it should go. It can't be any other way type of stuff. And so that's me working by myself, making sure that the customer can do this workflow by themselves without any room for interpretation. If there is any interpretation, they can obviously ask, but that's me kind of working by myself for the time being. But for the most part, I do work with other people. So really good question.
A question I want to ask is for our geography students that are on here that, like you, may need to ramp up and build their technology skills. What are places and things that you recommend they do outside of trying to take other classes and stuff? Where can they build those? Where would you recommend they go?
So that's a really good question. There's if you're looking for Esri related stuff, I do know that there's a lot of free training courses on let me see if I can just Google it. It's called like Esri training, something like that. I can send the link. But anyway, so you can Google something like that, and you'll get a lot of good Esri related information. Uh, you can also do YouTube, and YouTube. That's how I learn. I don't know if anyone else does that. That's how I learned in school. One, if I was ever taking a class and I didn't know how to do something, there's a video for everything on YouTube. Uh, so you could search ArcGIS Enterprise on YouTube, and you'll probably come up. So after the UC, the user conference, if you aren't familiar with that, that's the Esri user conference every year in San Diego. It's virtual now, and so since it was virtual this year, you can actually pretty sure you can search and see every single UC video on there at this point. And there's like highly technical information. A lot of it's high level, a lot of it's super deep in the weeds, but it at least gives you that point of reference of things like that. There's also Esri documentation. You can search just like it's just let's just give an example: ArcGIS Enterprise, uh, step by step workflow, and you might not be able to do it unless you have like a university license. I'm not sure what kind of licenses are provided in the geography department, but there's like this is just an example. I don't know where the chat is for WebEx, or
I,
else I would drop it.
Oh, that's fine. You can if you want to email it to me, I can drop it in there
Yeah,
real quick.
yeah, I can
Maggie,
send that later.
yeah, Maggie in the chat here did provide something great for general Python skills. Codeacademy.com is a good place that she goes, and they have tutorials on a bunch of programming languages. So thanks for
Yeah. And
sharing
there's
that, Maggie.
also yeah, thanks Maggie. And there's also in those same Python regards, there's a lot of good Python like workflows that Esri's provided too. And it's like examples and things like that. And you can kind of just walk through so here's an example right here. It's one of the Esri blogs. Uh, and it'll start to link to different pieces of documentation and things like that. And so there'll be like an article at the very bottom, and it'll be like a Python tutorial, parts 1, 2, and 3. So you can go through those. Um, Now, I'm not, like I said, I'm not too sure what kind of uh, memberships you have with Esri through the university or things like that. So it may be worth asking like one of the professors or instructors or anything like that if y'all do have access to that. You could also do I'll drop another link, and I think it's great. It's ArcGIS Online trial account, and I think you can do like unlimited ones as a student. You just kind of have to keep redoing it. So here in this chat, so if you're interested in getting a head start on the WebGIS, it's with ArcGIS Online, and ArcGIS Online is basically ArcGIS Enterprise that I was talking about that I'm an expert in. ArcGIS Online is just hosted by Esri. All the software it's kind of put together by Esri. The difference is uh, ArcGIS Enterprise, you would download the software and kind of put it all together yourself and host it on your machines or whatever it may be. So ArcGIS, this trial link that I just sent you, if you are interested in getting a head start onto the WebGIS arena, I'd highly recommend doing some ArcGIS online trial accounts. If for some reason you can't reuse your email or do unlimited student ones, just make some junk emails in Gmail or Yahoo or whatever it is, and just keep redoing it. It's really cool. You basically get an unlimited ArcGIS Online subscription with like 300 or 500 credits for 21 or 30 days at a time. Uh, you can do anything you want with it. You can publish it, stuff from ArcGIS Pro. And so in this regards, if you wanted to do that and you couldn't find one of the tutorials, you could Google ArcGIS Pro publish to ArcGIS Online, Google that, and it's going to give you a nice piece of documentation. And there it is. So, and I just Googled that. So, and that ties in together that Googling is like a extremely crucial skill set to learn if you're going to be in a technical role one day. Um, it's just the same as that interview process that I was talking about. How that there was that hour-long phone interview, and they just want to make sure I can Google something and figure it out on the
Huh.
fly. Um,
Harrison, real quick, kind of where do you see your career path going? Specifically at Esri, and then it's even beyond that.
yeah, great question. I haven't thought about it too much just because this month was my year anniversary in this consulting role. Before that, I was in tech support for 2.5 years. So I haven't thought about the long term, like at like a deep level. But what I do anticipate myself doing, I am a highly technical person. I don't see myself being like a manager or being like an account type of person. I see myself working with software, like showing people or like building things and putting together software or like managing like on like an IT side of thing at a grander scale. And I want to, instead of really doing this for the customers, what I think I would like to do is we've got what are called like technical leads and or like ArcGIS Enterprise system architects. And so these customers, let me see if I can pull one up. But it's called a network diagram, and it'll be really quick. And basically, what it is a as a system architect, you basically architect. It's literally that word, and uh, you basically come up with this entire implementation of the software here. So this is ArcGIS Enterprise. I don't want to get too deep into this, but uh, it might just look like boxes and things like that on paper, but you really, each one of these boxes is a different machine that hosts a different piece of our software. And it shows like firewalls and like different networking and things like that. And so I want to use my GIS knowledge, and I'm on the front lines right now gathering and learning how customers use our software in different ways that maybe we have never imagined. So I'm using that, and I'm internalizing all that and really understanding that. And then I'm coming back as a expert of putting together and designing this type of software. I want to be able to do this perfectly and really understand what each customer needs, how big their machines need to be, how many users are going to be in it. Maybe they've got 500 field workers that are going to be accessing this website at one time. You're gonna imagine that it needs to be a pretty robust website. Um, so I want to be able to take all that knowledge and my skill sets and hand this off to someone like me currently. So like I might get this from, I actually designed this one because I'm getting a little bit better at it. But before I might have gotten something like this and said from that system architect said, hey Harrison, implement this for so and so. So I want to be that person that designs this and sends it to the consultant and says, hey, do this. So great question, but that might change soon. I don't know. So I haven't thought about it too deep, but I do know that sounds really nice to me.
That's great. Thanks so much for sharing. We have time for maybe one more question if anybody's got one in the chat that they want to toss in. Well, Harrison, thank you so much for being here and providing such great and detailed information for our group. We really appreciate it, and great to see you doing big things with Esri, and good luck going forward.
Yeah, thanks so much. If anyone has any questions or additional, they can just find me on LinkedIn or something like that. Feel free to connect, and I'll be more than happy to help out.
Feel free to do it. Y'all, that's how I found Harrison for this meetup, was connected on LinkedIn. So it does work. Well, thank you all for being here again, and have a great afternoon.
Yeah, thanks. See you later.
Mhm.